Wiley Fox's 2015 Swift and Storm impressed me more than you'd think given the specs and price. They were a genuine breath of fresh air from a British company. And now we have the 2016 follow-ups, the Spark, Spark Plus and Spark X. And yes, that is a little confusing. The Spark is the cheapest of the three at £90 SIM-free with 5-inch 720p IPS display, 8GB of storage. That's a bit low in 2016, methinks. 8-megapixel camera and Cyanogen OS 13 based on Android 6. They've stepped away from Qualcomm inside too with a MediaTek chip and only a gig of RAM on board. Oh dear. Come on, no one's going to want this, surely. Happily, the £115 Spark Plus bumps the storage to 16GB, RAM up to 2GB, and the rear camera is 13 megapixels, while the £130 Spark X gets larger as well with a 5.5-inch screen. Only the latter two need concern anyone here, I think. I'll try and get the Spark X in for review as soon as possible. There's a lot to recommend this, the brand new Alcatel Idol 4, and yes, this is its party trick. It sits at the perfect nexus of low price, high specifications, ultra sleek metal and glass build, and loud JBL branded stereo speakers on the front and back. Around £220 in the UK, and they throw in a VR headset as well. Run, don't walk to your nearest stockist. In my case, the rather wonderful clove.co.uk. What's the catch? Well, there's only one, and it's more of a caveat, linked perhaps to that low price, but more on that in a moment. Let's start with the almost perfect form factor though. An aluminium chassis houses a 5.2-inch 1080p LCD screen, bright and clear and working well outside in the sun. Inside there's a full 3GB of RAM supplying the latest Snapdragon 617 processor, 16GB of internal storage plus micro SD, and a 13 megapixel f/2.0 camera which produces very good photos, perfectly acceptable for a phone of this price. There's phase detection autofocus but no lasers or OIS of course. Video capture is at 1080p and with stereo audio, though the microphones aren't high amplitude, so don't expect to be recording rock gigs with this. You also get NFC, though it's not paired here with any biometrics. A fingerprint sensor somewhere on the form is the one spec point I really thought should have been put in, as it would certainly make future Android Pay transactions more convenient. Plus dual SIM, though as usual with Chinese smartphones, the second nano SIM slot has to share its space with micro SD, meaning you have to decide on extra storage or an extra SIM. You can't have both. The controls are virtual here at the bottom, plus there's a power button here on the wrong side, left-handers will like it, plus a volume rocker and a so-called boom key on the right. The idea is that this does different things in different applications. So it's a shutter button in the camera app and a shuffler for collages in gallery. And well, that's about it. There's not much more it works with. You can also assign it to launch a custom application when pressed, which is always handy. Plus it mirrors the main power button, and it can also light up the screen, saving you having to press this button top left. Ready for unlocking. Pretty neat overall. I'm happy to have it, and it reminds me very much of the smart button on some of the Honor handsets. As with the Idol 3 before, everything's reversible, of course. Pick the phone up either way and answer a call either way. It makes absolutely no difference to the Idol 4, other than the volume keys are under your little fingers rather than your right thumb, depending on how you pick it up. The Dragon Trail glass, front and back, has an oleophobic coating, so it feels $1 million in the hand and is fingerprint resistant. And while it's grippy enough in the hand, thanks to the chamfers and the flat sides of the phone, this thing slides off flat tables and desks. I've seen this on a handful of phones before, starting with the Nexus 4. You put it down on a flat desk or surface, you leave the room, a minute later you hear a clonk. And yes, it slid off millimetre by millimetre and landed on the floor. It's frustrating. You have to be very careful where you put this thing. The main hardware unique selling point here is the pair of JBL speakers. These aren't quite forward-facing since they're also rear-facing thanks to grills either side of each end, if you see what I mean. So the speakers actually face outwards and the sound is bounced off baffles front and back. They're very loud though. Here's a demo. This is full volume. Very clear indeed, very loud. We're outdoors especially, so this will be louder indoors. I can't imagine any phone owner would complain at these. They're demonstrably good. Though you're going to ask me about the Marshall London, aren't you, in terms of speakers? I can tell. The latter does have better bass and overall fidelity. You can tell in this back-to-back test. Listen to Roger Waters' bass in this 5-second clip. And now the same 5-second clip on my beloved Marshall London. And if the Nokia 808 picking this up managed to give you the bass differences there, then you're doing well. Down at one end is micro USB, and it's quick charge 2.0 compatible, feeding a sealed 2610 milliamp hour battery, which easily gives a full day's normal use and with charge to spare. And so does software, and the caveat I mentioned earlier. No, it's not the skin, since Alcatel haven't done too much over stock Android. The app drawer, notifications and settings are all where you'd expect them to be. They also haven't duplicated Google's offerings with just gallery mirroring photos, something we're quite used to. And hey, at least you get the fun of seeing the boom key shuffling things with every press. Plus Alcatel's custom music player duplicating Google Play Music. But then there are some hi-fi smarts in here which perhaps justify this, not least the Waves Max Audio System equalizer. The caveat here, and maybe it's me just being a bit oversensitive, is that there's a truckload of third-party services and applications, and unlike on most other Android phones, they can't all be uninstalled. I'm looking here at the Alcatel App Store, Smart Suite, Boost, Fuse, the Alcatel Game Store, Little Star, Tizer Lifecasting. For all of these, all you can do is go into the settings and applications and disable them. And some of them, like Boost here, you can't even disable. All you can do is stop the service manually after booting each time. As a geek anyway, this annoys me. I'm sure regular users will probably just live with it all. Alcatel's idea with all these services and apps, as indeed with the thankfully uninstallable WPS Office, Gameloft Hub, Zender File Transfer, Lampa VR, Deezer and Asphalt Overdrive, is that they get a kickback of some kind from the developers for users who go on to sign up and spend money in each app or service, which in turn helps subsidise the phone, and I'd guess it reduces the cost to end users by £20 or so. Maybe I'm old school, but I think I'd rather spend the extra money than live with 13, count them, 13 apps and services which have to be hidden, removed, stopped or disabled just to get back to what Google normally provides out of the box for Android. As I say, I doubt Joe Average will mind any of this. They might even discover new apps and services and games through the inclusions that they enjoy. But I'm not Joe Average, and I doubt you are either if you're watching this. The inclusion of a rather good Shell VR headset is nice, that only fits this particular phone. There we are. Watching VR on a 1080p screen isn't a perfect experience, but Alcatel does say on the box it's entry-level VR. That's entry-level in quotes, so hey, it's a freebie. I can now see blinking in the sunlight what I'm doing. So why not? A VR launcher is supplied to find VR content for you in the Play Store, and I was up and running in minutes on a tropical beach and orbiting Jupiter, that sort of stuff. Fun, fun, fun. Provided you're happy to spend a few minutes cleaning things up though, there's a great mid-tier smartphone here. It looks really stylish, it's superb for consuming media, both video and music, and there's precisely zero lag across the UI. As with other value smartphones I've featured recently, viewing this hardware in context next to, say, HTC or Samsung rather puts the big brands to shame. To all intents and purposes, the Alcatel Idol 4 on a table looks terrific next to a Galaxy S7 or HTC 10 and gets 95% the way to the same functions, yet it comes in at half the price or less. This is the Alcatel Idol 4, very interesting indeed.